In March 2020, the head of the Victoria Police Missing Persons Squad was Detective Inspector Andrew Stamper. Stamper is a casual, easy-talking copper who has fronted his fair share of press briefings without attracting a public profile of any note, except with crime reporters and aficionados. But he has proved remarkably effective. He has an engaging turn of phrase and an amusingly dry sense of humour, which makes him very easy to like. With short, curly black hair, a solid and imposing 1.88 metre frame and a laconic drawl, he has a knack for winning and keeping friends. His parents are from the north of England, but Stamps is an Aussie and a veteran major crime and homicide detective with Victoria Police, VicPol. He was one of a couple of dozen key detectives in Task Force Purana, whose work ended the Melbourne Gangland War of 2000 to 2004. He has pursued, arrested, interviewed and convicted dozens of serious offenders, and several of those can be counted among Australia's most cunning, intelligent criminal psychopaths. He has also been presented with a vast range of puzzling crime scenes, as well as many that were not so puzzling but just enormously tragic. After the completion of the investigation into the murder of 23-year-old comedian and actress Eurydice Dixon in an inner-city Melbourne park, a particularly shocking case that Stamper also led, he moved from homicide to the Missing Persons Squad, where, theoretically, confronting cases with a high media profile were less likely. In early March 2020, the appeal launched by James Todd, Dixon's 19-year-old killer, against the severity of his sentence was finally dismissed. He would spend his life behind bars. The final chapter in that sad, horrific story was closed, and Stamps enjoyed a fortnight's refreshing leave before returning to work at the Missing Persons Squad. Right there and then he was confronted with a series of photos that the local detectives from the Wellington Crime Investigation Unit, based in the regional town of Sale, had been sharing with his team in his absence. They depicted a mysterious burnt-out campsite and a white Toyota Land Cruiser four-wheel drive that had been found after a retired logger had been reported missing. The contrast with the Eurydice Dixon case was stark. For the time being, the local detective in charge of the investigation was Amy Frost, an officer of some note in the tight-knit world of policing due to the impressive haul of gold medals she had won snowboarding and slalom skiing at the Australian Police Games the previous winter. Over the last couple of days, Amy had been assembling a summary of facts about the missing retired logger and sharing these with one of Andy Stamper's investigators, Detective Senior Constable Abby Justin. In the spare, rather clinical conference room where the Missing Persons Squad was located, on the 4th floor of the headquarters of VicPol in Spencer Street, Melbourne, Abby began bringing Stamps up to speed. The Land Cruiser belonged to the logger, a 74-year-old man named Russell Hill, who lived in the Victorian town of Druin with his wife, Robin. Russell had told Robin he was going camping for a few days in the Wonnangatta Valley, which he often did. Having spent much of his life as a forestry worker, Russell was a tough old nut who loved the outdoors. Years earlier, he had helped cut the switchbacks on the now much-travelled Zika Spur track, one of the few steep, awkward, unsealed four-wheel drive pathways leading from the comforts of modern civilization into the no-tech wilderness of the Wonnangatta Valley.